Before we begin, let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone so much that you'd give up everything for them? Your dreams, your future, your very identity? James Morrison did. And on one snowy Christmas Eve in 1945, he was about to discover whether that love had destroyed him or saved him. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, to the moment he first saw her. The summer of 1928 was hot and lazy in Bedford Falls, the kind of summer where time seemed to move like honey. James Morrison was 18 years old, home from his first year at university, and he was standing at the edge of the old swimming hole watching the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen. Her name was Mary Hatch. She was 14, all gangly limbs and wild curls, standing on the high diving board with her friends daring her to jump. She wore a modest swimming costume, and even from a distance, James could see she was trembling. "Jump! Jump! Jump!" the other kids chanted. Mary looked down at the water, then back at her friends, then down again. James saw the exact moment she made her decision, the way her shoulders squared, the way she took a deep breath. And then she jumped. It wasn't graceful. She flailed her arms and screamed all the way down, hitting the water with an enormous splash that sent waves across the swimming hole. When she surfaced, sputtering and laughing, her eyes met his across the water. James felt something in his chest shift, like a door opening to a room he'd never known existed. "Who's that?" he asked his friend Tommy. "Mary Hatch. She's just a kid." "Why?" "No reason," James lied, unable to look away from her smile. That night, there was a dance at the high school gymnasium. James went with his college friends, feeling sophisticated and worldly in his new suit. The gym was decorated with paper streamers and Chinese lanterns, and a local band played popular songs on a makeshift stage. He was talking to some girls from his graduating class when he saw her again. Mary had come with her older sister, wearing a simple white dress that made her look older than her 14 years. She stood by the punch bowl, looking nervous and out of place among the older crowd. Their eyes met across the room, and James felt that same strange shift in his chest. Without thinking, without planning, he found himself walking toward her. "We met at the swimming hole today," he said. "Sort of. I'm James Morrison." "I know who you are," Mary said, blushing. "Everyone knows James Morrison. You're the smart one who went to university. And you're the brave one who jumped off the high board." "I was terrified," she admitted. "But sometimes you have to do scary things, right?" "Right," James agreed, though he wasn't thinking about diving boards anymore. The band started playing Buffalo Gals, an old-fashioned song that required a partner dance. Without thinking, James held out his hand. "You're too young to dance with me," Mary said, but she was smiling. "You're too brave not to," James countered. She took his hand and they danced. It was clumsy. She stepped on his toes twice, and he bumped into another couple, but James didn't care. Holding Mary Hatch in his arms felt like the most natural thing in the world. When the song ended, Mary's sister appeared with a stern look. "Mother said you're too young to be dancing with college boys. Come on, we're going home." Mary gave James an apologetic smile and let herself be led away. But at the door, she turned back and waved. James waved back, grinning like an idiot. "You're smitten," Tommy said, appearing beside him with a cup of punch. "With a 14-year-old kid?" "She won't be 14 forever," James replied. And he was right. The years passed. James returned to university for his second year, then his third. But every time he came home for summer or Christmas, he found himself looking for Mary Hatch. He watched her grow from a gangly girl into a beautiful young woman. He watched her at church socials and town events. He watched her, and he waited. When Mary turned 16, James, now 20 and in his final year of university, finally worked up the courage to speak to her again at the annual Christmas dance. "Mary Hatch," he said, approaching her with 2 cups of punch. "Remember me?" "James Morrison," she replied, her eyes sparkling. "The boy who danced with me when I was too young." "Are you still too young?" "I'm 16 now. Practically ancient." "Then dance with me. For real this time." They danced, and this time neither of them stepped on toes or bumped into other couples. This time, It felt like they'd been dancing together forever. "I heard you're going to graduate next year," Mary said. "Then you're going to build bridges in South America and skyscrapers in New York City. Everyone talks about how James Morrison is going to conquer the world." "That's the plan," James said, but for the first time, those dreams felt less exciting than they once had. "That's wonderful," Mary said, and he couldn't tell if the sadness in her voice was real or imagined. "I'm happy for you." "Mary," James said suddenly. "Wait for me." "What?" "I'm coming back. After university, after I see the world, after I build my bridges and skyscrapers. I'm coming back to Bedford Falls, and I'm coming back for you." "James Morrison, are you asking me to wait 4 years for you? We've barely talked. We've danced twice. You don't even know me." "I know enough," James said with the confidence of a 20-year-old who thinks he has all the time in the world. "I know you're brave enough to jump off high diving boards. I know you have the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. And I know that someday I'm going to marry you." Mary laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. "You're crazy." "Maybe. But will you wait?" She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll wait. But James? Don't make me wait too long." "I won't," he promised. "For years. Just give me 4 years to make something of myself, and then I'll come back and we'll build a life together. The big life, Mary. Full of adventure and excitement and everything this small town can't give us." "I don't need a big life," Mary said softly. "I just need you." Those words would haunt James for the rest of his life. 3 weeks into his final semester, the telegram came. His father had suffered a massive stroke. The family building and loan was in crisis. James needed to come home immediately. He stood in his dorm room with the telegram in his hand and made a decision. Just for a few weeks, he told himself. Just until things stabilized. Then he'd come back, finish his degree, and begin the life he'd promised Mary. But his father died 2 days after James arrived home. And at the funeral, standing in the cold rain, James felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him like a physical force. After the service, Mary found him standing alone by his father's grave. "I'm so sorry, James," she said, taking his hand. "I have to stay," James said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "The building and loan. If I don't run it, Potter will buy it and shut it down. All the families my father helped, all the people who depend on us. I have to stay." "For how long?" "I don't know. A few months maybe. A year at most." Mary squeezed his hand. "I'll wait." "Mary, I asked you to wait 4 years. Now it's going to be longer. That's not fair to you." "Life isn't fair, James. But love is patient." She kissed his cheek. "I'll wait. However long it takes." 1 year became 2. 2 became 3. James poured everything into keeping the building and loan alive, fighting off Potter's attempts to destroy or absorb it. His university dreams faded like old photographs. His plans for adventure and excitement crumbled like old newspapers. But through it all, Mary waited. She was 19 now, beautiful and patient, working as a librarian and turning down proposals from other young men. Everyone in Bedford Falls knew she was waiting for James Morrison, though James himself seemed too buried in work to notice. It was Tommy who finally shook some sense into him. They were having a drink at Martini's bar one evening in 1932 when Tommy said, "You're an idiot." "Excuse me?" "Mary Hatch has been waiting for you for 4 years. She's turned down 3 marriage proposals that I know of. And you're so busy saving the world that you haven't even properly courted her." "I'm trying to build something, Tommy. Trying to make something of myself before you what? Before you're worthy of her? James, she's not waiting for some successful businessman or world traveler. She's waiting for you. Just you. The you that exists right now." That night, James stood outside Mary's house, looking up at her lit window, and made a decision. He couldn't offer her the world. He couldn't offer her adventure or excitement or wealth. But he could offer her himself, all of himself, forever. He picked up a handful of small pebbles and threw them at her window, just like in the romantic stories. The window opened and Mary leaned out, her hair loose around her shoulders. "James Morrison, what are you doing?" Come down here, he called up. It's 11 o'clock at night. I don't care. Come down. Please. 5 minutes later, Mary appeared on the porch in her bathrobe and slippers. This better be important. My father almost called the police. Marry me, James blurted out. What? Marry me. Right now. Well, not right now this second, but soon. Next week. Tomorrow if we could. James, you're not making any sense. He took her hands, his heart pounding. I asked you to wait for me while I conquered the world. But I'm never going to conquer the world, Mary. I'm going to spend my life in this small town, running a small building and loan, helping small families buy small houses. That's my life. That's all I can offer you. And it's not fair. I know it's not fair, but I'm asking you anyway. Will you marry me? Mary looked at him, tears streaming down her face. You're an idiot, James Morrison. I know. I don't care about conquering the world. I never did. I know. I just want you. I've only ever wanted you. So is that a yes? Yes, you wonderful idiot. Yes, I'll marry you. James pulled her into his arms and kissed her, right there on her parents' porch at 11 o'clock at night. It was the first time they'd ever kissed, and it felt like coming home after a long journey. They married 6 months later in a simple ceremony at the church. James couldn't afford much, every dollar went to keeping the building and loan solvent, but Mary didn't care. She wore her mother's wedding dress and carried wildflowers picked from the field behind her house. I'm sorry I can't give you more, James whispered as they stood at the altar. You're giving me everything, Mary whispered back. You're giving me you. Their honeymoon was supposed to be a trip to New York City, 3 days at a real hotel, Broadway shows, fancy restaurants. James had saved $300, every spare penny he could scrape together. They were at the train station, bags packed, when they saw the crowd gathered outside the building and loan. The bank had failed, and people were panicking, demanding their money. Mary looked at James. She saw the decision forming in his eyes before he spoke it. The honeymoon can wait, can't it? He asked, his voice breaking. Mary took his hand. We don't need New York City, James. We have each other. Let's go save your families. They spent their honeymoon in the building and loan office. Mary kept the books while James stood before the crowd, using their honeymoon money to calm the panic and save the institution. That night, in their tiny apartment above the drugstore, James held Mary and wept. I'm so sorry. I promised you adventure and excitement. Instead, I gave you a honeymoon in an office and $2 to our name. Mary wiped his tears. James Morrison, listen to me. I didn't marry you for adventure or money or excitement. I married you because I love you. Because when I was 14 and jumped off that diving board, you were watching me like I was the bravest person in the world. Because you dance with me like we're the only two people alive. Because you have the biggest, most generous heart I've ever known. But I've given up everything for this town. My dreams, my education, our honeymoon. You gave up your dreams, Mary interrupted gently. But you made mine come true. My dream was never to see the world, James. My dream was to build a life with you. And we're doing that. Right here, right now, together. James pulled her closer. I don't deserve you. Probably not, Mary agreed with a smile. But you're stuck with me anyway. The years flowed forward. They had 4 children. Peter, Jane, Tommy, and little Sarah. They moved into a drafty old house that James kept promising to fix but never quite found the time. Money was always tight. Adventures were few and far between. Life was ordinary, mundane, often exhausting. But Mary never complained. She packed lunches and mended clothes and kept the household running. She worked part-time at the library and volunteered at the church. She raised their children with love and discipline. And every single night, no matter how tired they were, she and James would sit together for at least 15 minutes, just the two of them, talking about their day. This is my favorite part of the day, Mary said one evening, her head on his shoulder. Just sitting with you. Even after all these years? James asked. Aren't you bored with me yet? Never. You could never bore me, James Morrison. But as the years passed, James watched Mary sacrifice more and more. He watched her wear the same 3 dresses in rotation because there was no money for new ones. He watched her take in sewing to help pay the bills. He watched her cry quietly when they had to tell the children they couldn't afford a real vacation. In 1938, his younger brother Harry came home from university, successful, engaged to a wealthy girl, offered a prestigious job at a factory. James stood at Harry's celebration party and felt the old bitterness rising. Harry had gotten everything James had sacrificed. Harry got to live the dreams James had abandoned. That night, Mary found him sitting alone in their bedroom, staring at nothing. "I see it in your eyes sometimes," she said softly. "The resentment. The regret." "Mary." "It's okay, James. I understand. You gave up your dreams for this town. For these people. For me." "No," James said firmly, pulling her to sit beside him. "I gave up some dreams. But I gained better ones. Every morning when I wake up next to you, every time our children laugh, every time you smile at me, that's worth more than all the bridges and skyscrapers in the world. Do you really believe that?" He looked at her, really looked at her. At the lines around her eyes from smiling. At the calluses on her hands from hard work. At the simple dress she'd worn 100 times. At the most beautiful woman he'd ever known. "I really believe that," he said. And in that moment he meant it. But belief is easy on the good days. It's the dark days that test us. The war came in 1941, and Harry became a Navy pilot and a hero. James tried to enlist but was rejected due to an old ear injury. So he stayed in Bedford Falls, running the building and loan, organizing scrap drives, selling war bonds. And feeling increasingly like a failure. Mary felt him pulling away, not physically but emotionally. She'd wake in the night to find him staring at the ceiling, lost in thoughts he wouldn't share. She'd catch him watching Harry's newsreel footage with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Talk to me," she begged one night. "Please, James. Don't shut me out." "I'm fine," he lied. "You're not fine. You haven't been fine for months. Is it because of Harry? Because of the war?" "I should be over there," James said bitterly. "I should be doing something important. Instead, I'm here, pushing papers, while my brother becomes a hero." "You are doing something important," Mary said fiercely. "You're keeping families in their homes. You're standing up to Potter. You're raising our children. You're loving me. That's important, James. That matters." "Does it?" James whispered. "Sometimes I wonder if I've just been fooling myself. Telling myself that this small life has value when really I'm just a coward who was too afraid to chase his real dreams." Mary slapped him. Not hard, but hard enough to shock them both. "Don't you dare," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Don't you dare diminish what we have. I have loved you since I was 14 years old, James Morrison. I have waited for you, stood by you, built a life with you. And if you're going to tell me that our love, our children, our life together doesn't matter, if you're going to tell me that I'm not enough, then maybe I've been fooling myself too." She ran from the room. James sat frozen, horrified at what he'd said, at the pain he'd caused. He found her in the kitchen, crying at the sink. "Mary," he said softly. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Am I enough for you?" she asked without turning around. "Our life together, is it enough? Or do you wish you'd married someone else? Someone who could have given you the adventures you wanted?" James turned her to face him. "You are everything to me. Everything, Mary. I'm tired. I'm scared. I feel like I'm failing everyone, including you. Especially you." "You're not failing me," Mary said, touching his face. "You could never fail me. But James, you have to stop comparing your life to other people's. Stop comparing yourself to Harry, to your college friends, to some imaginary version of who you think you should have become. This is your life. This is our life. And it's beautiful." "Is it enough for you?" James asked. "This small life? This ordinary house? This boring husband?" Mary smiled through her tears. "You want to know what I think about when I think about my life? I think about the day you threw pebbles at my window to propose. I think about our wedding, when you cried saying your vows. I think about the first time we held Peter, And you were so afraid you'd drop him that you sat in the same position for 2 hours. I think about Sunday mornings when you make terrible pancakes and the kids pretend they're delicious. I think about slow dancing in the kitchen when the radio plays our song. I think about how you still look at me like I'm the most beautiful woman in the world, even though I'm wearing the same dress I wore 5 years ago and my hands look like I've been washing dishes my whole life, which I have. She took his hands. This life isn't small, James. It's full. It's full of love and joy and meaning. And yes, it's full of struggle and sacrifice too. But we're facing it together. That's what matters. Not fame or fortune or adventure. Just you and me facing life together. James kissed her. I love you. God, I love you so much. I know, Mary said. But sometimes you forget. You forget that love is the adventure. That we're living the greatest story there is. The story of two people who chose each other and kept choosing each other, no matter what. I'll try to remember, James promised. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, Morrison. And he was. Through the rest of the war. Through the years of struggle. Through the times when money was tight and times were hard. Through it all, Mary was there. Which brings us to Christmas Eve, 1945. James's Uncle Billy lost $8,000 from the building and loan. The bank examiner was coming. James faced prison, disgrace, the destruction of everything his family had built for 3 generations. He searched everywhere for the money. He went to Potter's office and begged, but the cruel old man refused to help, had probably stolen the money himself, though James couldn't prove it. He went home that afternoon, his world crumbling. And he did something he'd never done before. He took his fear and frustration out on his family. When the children asked him to help with their school project, he snapped at them. When Mary reminded him about the Christmas caroling that evening, he yelled at her. When little Sarah's school play costume needed fixing, he told her to leave him alone. Mary sent the children to their rooms and confronted him in the kitchen. James Morrison, I don't know what's happening, but you don't get to treat our family like this. $8,000 is missing. James exploded. I'm going to prison, Mary. The building and loan is finished. Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, it's all gone. Then we'll face it together, Mary said calmly. Whatever happens, we'll. No. James shouted. Don't you understand? I'm worth more dead than alive. The life insurance would cover the shortage, save the company, protect you and the children. I'm worth $20,000 dead and nothing alive. Mary's face went white. What are you saying? James looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the fear in her eyes. Fear of losing him. And something inside him broke. I'm saying I've failed, he whispered. I've failed the business. I've failed the town. I've failed you. You should have married someone else, Mary. Someone who could have given you the life you deserved. He grabbed his coat and ran out into the snow before she could respond. Mary stood in the kitchen, her heart pounding, terror gripping her chest. She knew that look in his eyes. She'd seen it before, in dark moments over the years, the look of a man who felt worthless, hopeless, lost. She grabbed the phone and called Harry. Then she called Tommy. Then she called every friend, every neighbor, every family that James had helped over the years. James is in trouble, she said to each of them. Real trouble. He thinks he's failed. He thinks his life doesn't matter. We need to show him the truth. We need to show him what his life has meant to all of us. Meanwhile, James stood on the bridge, gripping the icy railing, staring down at the dark water. The life insurance would take care of Mary and the children. They'd be better off without him. I wish I'd never been born, he whispered into the darkness. And then, impossibly, a voice behind him said, Interesting wish. Most people just wish for money or success. But you want to erase yourself completely. And you're Mary. James spun around. Standing on the bridge was a small, elderly man with twinkling eyes and a gentle smile. Who are you? Name's Clarence. I'm here to stop you from making the biggest mistake of your life. You don't understand. I understand that you think your wife and children would be better off without you. I understand that you think your life has been a failure. And I'm here to show you just how wrong you are. You want to know what the world would look like without you? Let's find out. Clarence snapped his fingers, and the world shifted. James found himself standing on the same bridge, but everything was different. The town looked darker, seedier. The warm family-owned businesses were gone, replaced by Potter's corporate franchises. But the worst part was what he found when he went looking for Mary. He found her at the library, locking up for the night. But this Mary was different, older, harder, with a pinched, fearful look. She wore old-fashioned glasses and a threadbare coat. "Mary!" James called, running to her. "Mary, it's me." She backed away, terrified. "Get away from me. I don't know you." "It's James. Your husband." "I don't have a husband," she said, her voice breaking. "I've never been married. I've never had anyone. Now leave me alone." She ran, and James stood frozen, feeling like his heart was being ripped out. Clarence appeared beside him. "Without you, she never had the courage to love. She never had anyone throw pebbles at her window. She never had anyone dance with her like she was the only person in the world. She spent her whole life alone, waiting for someone who never came." "No," James whispered. "And your children? Peter, Jane, Tommy, Sarah? They don't exist, James. They were never born. The love story that created them never happened." James fell to his knees in the snow. "Please, please, I want to go back. I want to see Mary. I want to hold my children. I want another chance." Clarence smiled. "That's all I needed to hear." The world shifted again, and James found himself back on the bridge, soaking wet and freezing. He didn't care. He ran through the streets of Bedford Falls, his heart pounding. He burst through his front door, shouting, "Mary! Kids!" His family came running, and James grabbed them all, pulling them into a fierce hug, sobbing. "Daddy, what's wrong?" Sarah asked. "Nothing's wrong," James said, kissing the top of her head. "Everything's perfect. You're here, and that's all that matters." Mary pulled back to look at him, her eyes full of concern and love. "James, the bank examiner is here. About the missing money." James looked at her, his Mary, his beautiful, patient, loving Mary, and laughed. "I don't care. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. As long as I have you, I have everything." He walked into the living room and stopped. The room was packed with people, all the families he'd helped over the years, all the neighbors, all the friends Mary had called. They were putting money into a basket on the table. Crumpled bills, handfuls of coins, hastily written checks. "What's going on?" James asked. Mary squeezed his hand. "You think you've been carrying us all these years, James? But we've been carrying you too. That's what love does. That's what family does." Mr. Patterson stepped forward. "When Mary called and said you were in trouble, we all came. Because you've been there for us. Now it's our turn. You gave my father a loan when no one else would," added the butcher. "Saved our family business. You helped us keep our home during the Depression," Mrs. Kennedy said, tears streaming down her face. One by one, they came forward, each with a story of how James had touched their lives. But the last person to approach was Mary. She held a small envelope. "I never told you this," she said softly, "but when you asked me to wait for you when I was 16, I started saving money. Every birthday, every Christmas, every odd job, I saved it. For our adventures together, I thought. For the honeymoon we never had." She opened the envelope and poured out bills and coins, years of saving. "It's not much, but it's yours. It's ours. Because that's what marriage is, James. Everything I have is yours, including my heart." The bank examiner stood up, counting the money in the basket. "Mr. Morrison, you have $8,712 here. More than enough to cover the shortage." The room erupted in cheers. Someone started singing, and soon everyone was joining in. James pulled Mary into his arms and kissed her, right there in front of everyone. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I'm sorry I ever doubted what we have." "I love you too," Mary whispered back. "And James? Stop comparing our love story to other people's adventures. Our love is the adventure. It always has been." That night, after everyone had gone home and the children were asleep, James and Mary sat on their worn couch, watching the lights twinkle on their imperfect tree. "I almost threw it all away," James said quietly. "I stood on that bridge and I couldn't see what I had. I could only see what I didn't have." Mary took his hand. "And now I see it all. I see that the greatest adventure isn't traveling the world. It's building a life with someone you love. It's waking up next to the same person for 20 years and still feeling your heart skip when they smile. It's raising children together and facing problems together and growing old together." He turned to face her fully. "Mary, you are my adventure. You always have been. From the moment I saw you on that diving board, from that first dance, from the night I threw pebbles at your window, you've been my greatest adventure." "And you're mine," Mary said, tears in her eyes. "You're my love story, James Morrison. My only love story." They sat together in the quiet house, holding hands, and James finally understood what Mary had been trying to tell him for years, that love isn't something that happens alongside your life. Love is your life. The daily choosing, the constant support, the shared joys and sorrows. That's the adventure. That's the story worth telling. The years that followed were good ones. James never became wealthy or famous. He never traveled the world or built monuments. But he built something more lasting. A life full of love. He fixed the drafty windows in their house, one at a time. He took Mary on small trips, weekend getaways to nearby towns, picnics by the lake, dancing at the town hall. Nothing grand or exotic, but perfect because they were together. He watched his children grow up and start families of their own. Peter became a teacher and married a lovely woman named Susan. Jane became a nurse and found love with a kind doctor. Tommy took over the building and loan, carrying on the family tradition. And Sarah became a social worker, helping families just like her father had. On their 40th wedding anniversary, James took Mary back to the old swimming hole where he'd first seen her. "Remember this place?" he asked. "How could I forget? This is where you fell in love with me. I was 18 and you were 14. I watched you jump off that diving board, and I just knew, that you were going to be important in my life." "And was I?" Mary asked, smiling. "Important, I mean?" James pulled her close. "You weren't just important, Mary. You were everything. You still are. Every good thing in my life, our children, our home, our friends, our community, it all came from loving you. You were right all those years ago when you said that love is the adventure. You were always right." "I usually am," Mary teased. "Took you long enough to figure it out." They stood together by the water, holding hands, watching the sun set over the swimming hole. 40 years of marriage. 40 years of choosing each other, supporting each other, loving each other. "If you could go back," Mary asked softly, "and choose differently, choose the university, the travels, the big career, would you?" James didn't hesitate. "Not for a second. Because all of that would have been empty without you. You're my home, Mary. You always have been." When James Morrison died at the age of 83, peacefully in his sleep with Mary holding his hand, his funeral was attended by over 1,000 people. But it was Mary's eulogy that everyone remembered. She stood before the crowd, her voice steady despite her tears, and said, "Everyone always talked about what James gave up, his dreams, his education, his chance at a bigger life. But I want to tell you what James gained. He gained a wife who loved him more than life itself. He gained 4 children and 12 grandchildren who adored him. He gained hundreds of friends and a community that respected him. He gained a life full of meaning and purpose and love. People say that love is patient, love is kind. And that's true. But I learned from James that love is also brave. Love is choosing someone every single day, even on the hard days. Love is building a life together, brick by brick, moment by moment. Love is the greatest adventure there is. I was 14 years old when I jumped off that diving board and saw James Morrison watching me. I didn't know then that I'd just met my forever. I didn't know that this boy would become my best friend, my partner, my great love story. But I'm so grateful that I jumped. I'm so grateful that he was watching. I'm so grateful for every moment we had together." She looked at his casket, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, James, for choosing me. Thank you for the adventures we shared, not in exotic places, but in our kitchen, our bedroom, our home. Thank you for showing me that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up, day after day, year after year, and choosing each other. You were my diving board jump, she whispered. My scary, wonderful, beautiful leap of faith. And I would jump again and again and again, knowing you'd be there to catch me. They buried James in Bedford Falls Cemetery, under an oak tree. Mary visited his grave every week for the next 5 years, until she joined him. On both their headstones, their children inscribed the same words. Here lies a love story. Because that's what it was. Not a story about success or achievement or adventure in faraway places. But a story about two people who found each other, chose each other, and built a life together through joy and sorrow, triumph and failure, for better and worse. The greatest love story of all. The one that happens between two ordinary people who make the extraordinary choice to love each other every day for a lifetime. And somewhere, perhaps in heaven, James and Mary are together again. Dancing like they're the only two people in the